Thank you so much for being here. It's so great to see such a full house. We just really appreciate you coming, and we have a lot of great speakers here for you today. I want to introduce myself really quickly. My name is Tammy Weicker-Adkins. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Board of Supervisors. If you have any questions or you have a comment card that you want to turn in, or if you need anything during the meeting, wave your hand and I will come and try and get you the help you need as well. We have two board representatives here, Alicia and Cameron, who's out at the front table in the purple shirt. So one of us can help you if you need some assistance during the meeting, okay? And without further ado, I want to introduce Supervisor Dennis Townsend. He's going to take it from here.
Sure. What? Okay, hey guys, thanks for coming. Great turnout. I know you have a lot of questions. Typically on these things, I'll go ahead and I'll introduce everybody. I'll have all the panelists, make a statement, and then I always tell them be brief, and then I go long because I'm trying to tell you all the stuff that's going on, this broad scope of things that are happening. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to be real short with mine, just introduce myself and let everybody do self-introductions up and down the table, and then we'll go right to question and answer. So we've got a couple that are up here as far as the question and answer sheets. If you haven't filled one out, go ahead and fill it out. We can kind of start with those. We may end up running out and having to go back to just calling out, for the questions and answers, and that's fine too. But we thought we'd start out with the sheets. So if you need one, ask one of the reps, wave your hand, and they'll bring them over to you. Or if you have one filled out, raise your hand, they can come and get it from you as well. One other thing I like to say is always feel free. You don't have to wait until a town hall. We try to do one around. I try to do one around where every community in my district can get to it once a year, but you can always call the 636-5000 number, which is the board line, and they will get a message to me if you have a question for me. If it's a question for another county office, they'll either redirect it there or they will give it to me and ask me to redirect it there. So feel free to do that anytime, because that's what I'm here for, and that's what the reps are here for, is to make sure your questions, concerns get to us. So I'm happy to have you come out, of course, at the town halls. It's nice to meet face to face, but anytime during the year, please feel free with whatever comment or question that you do have. Also, I just wanted to say, you can see it's a big panel that's up here. That's one of the reasons I don't want to take a long time with introductions. I do want to thank this panel. As you go up and down, you can see that these are representatives from a lot of county agencies, but also state agencies, federal agencies that are up here. And they all are wanting to work together, to answer questions, to collaborate, to get things done. You all have been through a lot, obviously, on this, like everybody else, but you got on top of it the fire, right? So some of you have had major losses, and so I think that's why they're really responsive. I do want to thank them particularly because there's 5 supervisors for the county. Every one of us have town halls, and so every one of us asks at least a portion of this group to come out, and which they do. And I'm going to have 5 or 6 town halls this year, so if the other supervisors do the same, you can see how many times they're going out and meeting with the public. So I just wanted to thank them. If you could join me in thanking them for coming out and doing this. I should have said with that, a lot of them were involved during the SQF fire up here and now during the cleanup, so a lot of them have been up here a long time, but you know a lot of them for that reason. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, well, first of all, so I'm the district supervisor for the 5th district, which includes Camp Nelson. If you don't know what those boundaries look like, it goes from sort of the northwest corner of Porterville, and if you go east, it goes all the way to Inyo County. And if you go south, it goes all the way to Kern County. So it's this huge geographic district, but we're broken up by numbers. So if there's 470-something thousand people, we're roughly 90,000 people, 90,000 constituents in each district. Now after the census, I think it's going to go up over 500,000, so we'll each have about 100,000 people in the district. So that's where my sort of boundaries are. And then, of course, the agencies that are up here go across all those boundaries, are countywide, statewide, or nationwide. Okay, so with that, I think I'll start down here, and I can either pass this. Let's pass this. I'll pass this and have everybody start doing self-introductions. They can pass it down. Good. Good idea, thank you. Perfect. That'll be enough. Thanks. Okay, just do a quick little self-introduction and pass it on down.
Hello, my name is Larry Camacho. I represent Tulare County Sheriff's Department.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Goddard. I'm the commander of the California Highway Patrol Porterville area office.
Hi everyone, I'm Teresa Benson, the Forest Supervisor for the Sequoia National Forest.
Can you stand up when you introduce yourself?
Yep, hi. Good afternoon, I'm Dana Wilson. I'm from Cal OES. I am the Southern Branch Director overseeing the tree and debris removal operations for Tulare County.
Good morning, Tyler Atterbury, local battalion chief of CAL FIRE, and welcome to represent CAL FIRE today.
Charlie Norman, Tulare County Fire Chief.
Hey, Kevin Sullivan, Tulare County Building Department.
Mike Washam, Associate Director of the Resource Management Agency, primarily relating with this is overseeing code enforcement, building permits, and some of the recovery effort on permitting.
Johnny Wong, Tulare County Public Works Roads.
Denise England, Water Resources Program Director, which also encompasses the upper watershed and forest health.
Neil Pilligard, Tulare County Parks and Recreation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Brian Thoburn with Southern California Edison, and just briefly, I want to thank all of you as our customers for your patience and perseverance the last year and a half, because we've all gone through the double whammy of the pandemic and then the fire, and then we want to salute you. And then also quickly, just want to apologize for the outage that occurred earlier this week. Our crews encountered some generator problems during the planned outage. So we know that there's never a good time for an outage, so we apologize for that inconvenience, and our crews are getting that problem squared away. So just wanted to close the loop on that.
All right, thank you everyone on the panel for those introductions. And then also, if you just look around and you can see on the back wall, we also have a lot, there's other highway patrol officers back there, there's sheriff's deputies, we have Forest Service back there, volunteer patrol, I said parole, sorry, I know you're not on parole. That was a long time ago. I don't think so. We don't have anybody from Caltrans, do we? No? Nope, I don't see anybody from Caltrans. Okay, I'm going to go right to question and answers, and I'm going to start with these ones in the order that they received them, and we're going to do that first, and I will try to direct it. This is from Ed Lynn. Regarding Cedar Slope, when is Edison going to finish running the lines, especially on the burned down cabin areas? And 2, extreme heat and heavy equipment has damaged paved roads. Is there any plans of having all the roads replaced? So probably Brian will answer the first one, I would think, and maybe Johnny or Mike can answer the second one. Okay?
Thanks for the question, and I'm blessed that we have with us a great team here. We have Phil Castro, our operations supervisor, and he supervises our crews. And then we have our vegetation management folks, which you most here know, Jason, Tony, and Louie. Phil, could you speak to that briefly on the work that's going on?
Yes, thank you. Operations Supervisor out of Tulare, we run 7 to 8 crews on a daily basis out of Tulare, and then with this pandemic, if someone comes down with symptoms, then I lose that entire crew. So you can see I'm short-handed with my crews. I've got 2 crews out now, so we're doing our best, but we have this scheduled for the end of this year, hopefully have it completed. Our troublemen are our first responders. Whenever you guys do have an outage out here, I know that they're running a few generators up here, and we've had some issues with these generators with everything that's going on with California being California compliant generators now, just being the startup load and everything else that's going on with them that California is making us do. Bear with us. We're getting with the technicians with these generators and making sure they stay running so that we can switch over our lines and continue working on the covered conductor that we're putting in. So by the end of this year, hopefully.
Thank you, Phil.
This is Johnny Wong with Tulare County Roads. To answer the second part of the question was, are we going to, I guess there's some issues with the roadways after all this activities are going on. As early as yesterday, I did drive the roads. I came up and took a look, and even prior to that, I had somebody else take a look at the roads also. I did find a couple of sections that can use some work, and it was very important that a person who called in says, hey Johnny, during the winter time, we have the snow season coming and we needed to plow the roads. We need the roads to be in fairly good condition. We sure hate to gouge into dirt and whatever else. We will fix those. But the main question is, are we going to do all the roads? I think that was part of the question. At this time, we're not, but not to say that let's see how things go after the everything is pretty much finished, and let's see how the roads are. Right now, we will try to make it as the best we can, very passable, and that's what I'll be looking for. So many things to be doing from this point up to before the winter season. So.
All right, and I think the other part of that too was the RMA has been Resource Management Agency has been looking at the roads, at the damage in the fire areas, and they have what's called a pavement condition index chart, and red is bad, and so a lot of the ones that are where the fires were, like I'm thinking like Bear Creek Road for one, especially that's got pretty tore up, it's red, and so they'll have that programmed to get in there first. Those will be the top priority ones. So there will be some going on for sure. This is from Gabby Kidwell. First for the Forest Service, Teresa, are trails getting open soon? And if so, how can we find out which ones? That's the first. And then also while you're at it, Teresa, status of the Castle Fire tree removal and remediation projects and the legal challenges.
Okay, how much time are you gonna allow for, if I go on too long, just feel free to cut me off, because there's quite a bit to share with you all, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that I was at this meeting. Because, first of all, one of the things I want to do, if Denise wouldn't mind helping me, you are the first group of people that I'm going to be sharing a information package with, all about the Castle Fire and the work that we've been doing for the last 7 months on the forest, that we want to make sure that you are aware of. And so we have printed out copies for you. You're actually the first people to receive this. It's not even online for folks. And basically, I'm just going to go over with you really briefly what's in that information package, and then you can take that home and get all the details and the data right directly from that. But there's 4 major things going on. One is we're still working on the burned area emergency response work following the Castle Fire. So as of today, we actually had a pre-bid contract bid tour go out to take a look at the different hazmat sites that are going to be having removal occur on them. And so those are the sites that occurred throughout the Castle Fire on federal land that will have those materials removed. That includes places like Jordan Lookout, which we just recently got a temporary repeater put there. It includes the CSEP camp off of Lloyd Meadow, a lot of different sites. And then the other thing that we have going on tomorrow is a pre-bid tour on the roads that will be getting fire suppression repair work done on those. And I have a map of all those roads. It's 110 miles of road. It's all going under contract, and those roads are all going to be getting repaired. So those are roads that are also, a lot of them are currently closed because of the hazard trees. The third thing that we have going on right now is a variety of different contracts that are being put together for the hazard trees that are along the main roads that the Forest Service manages. Roads like the North Road, Lloyd Meadow Road, McIntyre, Belknap area roads. Those are all being worked on right now by timber cruisers who are gathering data on the hazard trees, and we're looking at putting those projects into contracts that would get bid on by the timber industry and have those areas, those trees removed. That's a pretty lengthy process. Part of the question was about our legal challenges, and I will just tell you the facts about that, what's going on with that currently. We actually have 3 lawsuits right now in the Fresno District Court that are related to Sequoia National Forest projects. One of those includes 17 projects throughout the entire forest that have to do with anything that we're doing that's removing material from the forest. So it's prescribed burning, mastication, biomass, commercial logging, chipping, you name it. My number one priority on the forest, I've been here for 3 years as the forest supervisor, has been fuel removal. We have 17 projects right now in the forest to do just that. And we are making a lot of progress. For example, in California, Sequoia National Forest, out of the 18 national forests in California, we by far have the most project work and acreage being treated out of any national forest in California right now. However, we have those projects right now in court being looked at very closely to make sure that we're complying with all of the rules, regulations, environmental policies, and all of that. So I have a great staff of people. They're working really hard, and I'm confident that we're going to make it through that, but it does slow down the process, and it does make us have to delay some of the work. But this particular area that we're talking about on the Castle Fire is the forest's #1 priority for what we're doing. On the 1 million acres that the Sequoia National Forest manages, the Castle Fire acres are our #1 priority, and we're putting all the effort that we can into getting these projects done. As far as the trails go, we have a lot of trails that are closed. We're assessing those trails. We actually have a trail crew right now that's out working on those trails. We have the Backcountry Horsemen Association, who has really done a terrific job to help partner with the Forest Service. I've heard recently that they're working on helping to assess and even help us get some of these trails open, which is really great. We appreciate them greatly. That's the kind of volunteer work that really helps the Forest Service, is when we can see our local partners partnering with us for the good of the public to get places open. But it's taking a long time because there's a lot of dead trees out there. I don't know if that answered it completely. If you have more questions, I'm more than happy to talk more about them later.
Thanks. All right, there was another question on here. The one was that it said roads, just a comment, roads on Redwood Drive in bad shape. And so that was one that Johnny kind of addressed of what they're working on there. And then upper Alpine debris removal status. And I think maybe Dina, you want to take that one, just the status? Upper Alpine.
Good afternoon, everybody. So for Tulare County, we've actually completed all debris removal for the properties that were actually enrolled in the state program. So that should be all completed. If there are any properties remaining, they are likely to be in the local program and done by a private contractor.
And so, and debris is just that's the structures.
Debris is just the structures. So debris is separate for trees. They're all part of the same program, but debris is just specifically for structures that were burned, so cabins or homes, etc., that were burned in the fire.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up on that too. Somebody asked about the yellow flags that are left at the building. The building that burned down at the corners of the foundations after it's been remediated. What are the yellow flags about?
So yellow flags and flags left on your property usually denote that it's either it's still in the soil sampling process, has not cleared soil sampling, where we make sure that we have removed all of the hazardous ash and debris from the area of usually the four corners. It can also denote trip hazards for the crew when they come back onto the property to either do erosion control or final sign-ups and making sure that we've done everything that we need to do. So you see those little flags, that's usually what that denotes. Occasionally they can denote, depending on how the properties are set up, boundary lines for us, so we know not to cross certain areas. But usually they're having to do with soil samples and then trip hazards.
Okay. Ina, I'm going to have you keep that because the next one's for you too, but I'll ask the questions on there and give it back to you. Okay, and the question from Ann Campbell, do you agree that property owners who were asked to sign right of entries, ROEs, were not adequately informed regarding the definition of what a hazard tree is to be removed? The quote, immediate threat versus the may die in 5 years. Do you want to explain that?
Sure. What is included in your right of entry form basically says that, actually, I'm going to ask my staff to actually get into my backpack that actually has the ROE, so I quote it verbatim. But it basically says that there are 2 trees that are part of the state debris and tree removal program. The first hazard trees that would be denoted is if we go into your property and your home has been destroyed by the fire and there's a tree close by, if our equipment can't safely maneuver around the property to clear the debris, a tree, whether it's living or dead, would likely be removed for the safety of the crew. So, you know, when you're swinging big bulldozers and such like that, we'll have to remove that tree because it prevents us from being able to adequately conduct our operations. The second is for hazard tree removal. The hazard trees, as the state and federal government define them, is that it's a tree that is within a certain distance from the right-of-way. So basically the road that you're on, a public right-of-way, it's a road that is maintained by the county. And it is dead or dying within 5 years. And that evaluation is done by a qualified arborist and is overseen by a registered professional forester. So they make the determination based on their expertise and the species of that tree. They take a look at the whole tree. So most of it has to do with the base of the tree and whether or not the structure or infrastructure of that tree has been entirely compromised. And it would potentially fall down into the right-of-way. That tree would then be designated as a tree that needs to be removed as part of this program. And the efforts of part of this program is to help the community to recover from this disaster, because you've all been through enough, as quickly as possible.
Okay, do you want to just hit on how they determine whether it will die within 5 years?
Well, I'm not a tree expert, but I will cover a couple of things. So I'm not an arborist, so I want to make sure that's clear, and I'm not a registered professional forester. However, having worked on this program for a couple of years, I will tell you some of the things that they take a look at. So when they take a look at the tree, they take a look at the percentage of how much that tree has been damaged by the wildfire. Now, if we were to, I'm going to do some charades here, so bear with me, folks. So if the tree is this tall, if it's about 75% up the way and it's been damaged by the wildfire, they'll take a look at the bark on that tree. They'll take a look at the base of that tree to see how structurally compromised it's been. And then they're going to take a look at other pieces of that tree. For instance, most folks will actually see like potentially a green canopy up at the top of that tree. That doesn't mean that tree has actually survived. It just means that top portion was not actually affected by the wildfire. What can happen during wildfire damage is that a tree will, after fire damage, can actually try to push and try to survive. And it will go through its normal natural systems to try to regrow green, but that doesn't mean it's actually going to survive. It's kind of on its last breath. So a lot of times you can take a look at a tree and you can see sap pushing out of a tree, a significant amount of sap in a lot of places. And that will actually mean that the tree is actually literally on its last breath, and it's not going to survive over the next 5 years. The determination for the 5 years is based on a number of different industry factors on how you look at dead or dying trees, but also is in accordance with the FEMA program. I think that answered most of it. Am I right?
Can you read the part of the ROE that says the 5-year thing?
It does not say 5 years in the ROE, but let me show you the part where it addresses this has come up in the last couple of days. So I believe that the area is number 3, which according to my ROE is page 2. So it says hazard trees or wildfire damaged trees that have been so damaged by the fires that they are their structural integrity is compromised, and that they pose immediate threat of falling onto work crews or obstructing their access to the debris clearance site, which is one of the areas that I spoke about earlier, or falling onto the public right of way or public improved property. The government has the sole discretion on whether to take or leave the hazard trees, to determine whether a tree is hazardous, and to approve tree removal from private roads. And that's where that is actually covered. It's part of the program on what we are. And I will say is we spoke to Supervisor yesterday. In a normal wildfire situation, following a wildfire where a community such as yours has been completely devastated by a wildfire, we would have a town hall like this that would help explain both the state debris and tree removal program. Due to the pandemic, we weren't able to hold community meetings. I do believe we had a couple of virtual meetings that were held, but that doesn't always necessarily reach out to every single person that's in the community. We figured out when we come up here that there's not a lot of cell service, not a lot of Wi-Fi service unless you're connected by a certain means. And so I know that it was really difficult to get out this particular information out to the public. And so I can understand the frustration that you don't feel that every detail of the program was listed in the ROE, but it is part of the program. And as I mentioned, the second line in the ROE, the government does have the sole discretion to determine what's a hazardous tree within the confines of the program.
Dennis, can I ask a follow-up on that while we're on the subject?
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to, but go ahead.
I'm reading the ROE language. From what we read when we signed it, is yes, you have the right to make that determination, but within the confines of your definition, which is it's an immediate hazard, it has structural integrity. There are so many trees at the crest that are marked for removal, as we've been trying to discuss with you, that have no fire damage, they have no structural integrity issues. They're perfectly healthy. We sent pictures and videos to our arborist experts up there that they say there's no way these trees should be marked for removal. Why aren't you working within your confines of the immediate threat? Where all this 5-year on road issue, it's not fair to bring that up after the fact, after we agreed to the immediate threat, to say, oh, but by the way, now we can kill anything we think might die within 5 years. It's totally not what was explained to us when we signed up for the program, and it's just not fair.
Thank you for the follow-up question. So as I mentioned when I read that section 3, the immediate threat is to crews that are on site and working the property for debris. The threat beyond that could fall on the public roadway or the public infrastructure. So that doesn't have to be an immediate threat under your definition. It is within the 5 years. And I can certainly understand you don't feel like you had that information, but that information was provided to the county.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to mention as we were going through some of these calls just yesterday. As a matter of fact, they were pulling up on the county website, the Recovers website, that it did have that definition was in there. And it's in the fact sheet that's out on the front there if you didn't pick that up. But anyway, that's just reprinted off of there. So it did actually have the 5-year definition. We had been really touting the good work of CAL FIRE down at Mountain Home, using them as sort of an example at the demonstration forest of, a healthy forest and how to manage a forest, because it is a demonstration project on a smaller piece of property, showing what can happen. Right after the fire, I took a tour, and I was down there with their forester, and he was pointing out trees, and to my surprise, he said, that one's dead, that one's dead, that one's dead, that one's dead. They had a lot of green in those, and he goes, kind of what Adina just said about the tree doesn't know it yet, but it's on its last leg already. They took them down very quickly there, just in order to get them out of the forest while they were still able to put them in the market. Because if they leave them for a couple of years and they get too punky, they can't, use them for logging anymore. So they made, their foresters and arborists made the, I was interesting that they used the same determination of the 5-year window. So I think one of the things that's, that's real important, and I've talked about this to several of you, is the communication I think was tough because as Dina mentioned, FEMA OES didn't have the time, or because of the shutdowns. They were still shut down and didn't have the outreach, and then as soon as they could get in, they did. They're working on that timeline, so they used their criteria to go in. But that's a surprise and a shock, of course, if you're on a piece of property where you've lost everything, and maybe most of the trees, and you see just a few that are still standing, and they've got some green, and you're hoping, and maybe hoping beyond hope, that they'll survive, and then next thing you know, somebody's cutting them down because they say they're a hazard. So the communication definitely was a problem here, and it continues to be. So I would like to follow up on that really quickly, because as soon as we had that conversation yesterday, I said, well, what can we do going forward from right now on? What can we do? Several asked about withdrawing from the program. So what I learned was that FEMA comes in, we all of us, and then we actually went to the federal government and to the state government and basically begged them and pleaded with them to get us into the disaster declaration so that they could do this cleanup. So once they do come in and they make the determination, they have to do it. They have to do the mitigation. So they can't, for example, leave a burned down house just out in the middle of the property, burned down, because now they've considered that that's hazardous waste. So it's got to be cleaned up. So at the beginning, there were a lot of conversations going back to structures. A lot of conversations where people said, well, I don't want the help, I don't want FEMA to do it, I'll do it myself. So there was an alternative way to do it. You could do it yourself. But I warned people back in the beginning, said, remember, they're going to hold you to the same standard as the FEMA standard of cleanup. So if you do it yourself, pay for it yourself, that's fine. But at the end, when you go to, you're going to have to do that same soils report and show that it's all clean before you're going to be able to rebuild on it. And so that was a tough one, but several people have done it. I don't know how many, I count them on one hand, but I think there's 4 or 5 that have done that and are looking for, in the building permit stage now. The other is, so that was regarding the structures, but the same thing went for the trees, that people could opt out at the beginning, but they still had to clean them up. Or what's going to happen at the end is that the federal government's going to come back to the county and say, you've got to take those trees down, because they were identified in the disaster as a hazard, by the people that we certified to do it. So they're going to come back around. Then if the county had to go back out, obviously the county can't do it, so they're going to ask the homeowner to do it, and we're going to end up with an ugly situation where the homeowner is ending up having to pay for it or getting a lien put on it if somebody else has to do a nuisance cleanup. The county had to do a nuisance cleanup, so nobody wants to go down that road. So to come full circle, I said, can we just have a form that the homeowner fills out and says, I won't hold FEMA, OES, the county responsible for these particular trees. I want these trees, left. And pretty much the answer coming down from OES was, no, you can't do that, because that's part of the program, so we're still going to require you to take it down in the future. Even if the homeowner says they'll absolve everybody of the responsibility, we're still going to come back to you, county, and make you do it. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard spot there. Like I said, hoping beyond hope that some of these will survive.
But the issue is
I have
that
a
there's
suggestion moving forward.
Go ahead.
A suggestion moving forward. Your state area leader, David Godoy. You know the name, Nina? Yes, I do. Okay. He's told me he's been instructed not to talk to residents, but prior to that instruction, I would suggest rescinding that instruction, because he is a boots on the ground liaison for you, who has mitigated a lot of concerns. I've been, as the vice president of the POA, I've addressed many concerns with him on the ground, and he pleasant, and he doesn't just ask me for a description of the problem, he says, take me to it and show me. And so I've done that. And in the case of a particular tree on Deborah's property, a large fir that's completely undamaged by the fire. He's not an arborist, I understand that, but he said, I will call the lead arborist and have him look at this again. And so we can identify individual cases where trees we feel should not be taken down. And we have this liaison on the ground who will mitigate these for us. I just ask that you rescind the instructions for him not to communicate with residents. If that was given by, I don't know if the instruction was given by you.
What was your name, ma'am?
Patricia Logan.
Thank you. Ms. Logan, so that was not my instruction. So I want to make that perfectly clear. I have several hundred staff on the ground.
Sorry,
That's okay. I say that for a reason. So this is an incident command system. So there are several crews that are on the ground, several people that are representing the state. We have the consultant and the contractor. So the direction was not that they stopped working with the residents, and they will continue to work with the residents. And where you identified and where you have a question, absolutely every single time we have gone out to address those. But I would tell you more often than not, upward in the 90% range, the decision hasn't changed. So, you know,
appreciate that.
yeah, so everything is reviewed by a lead qualified arborist. If there is a question beyond what the lead arborist has, it's reviewed by the registered professional forester. You can't get higher than that. So he's the guy that knows trees, everything. So that's where that second review goes through. It also, when we get a flag from the community that says, hey, take a look at that, the state also does its other internal processes to make sure that we reviewed it. It's on the right property line, it's far enough away, it meets all of the criteria above and beyond that. So we do that for every single time that a question has come up. So when a question has come up, a lot of times we put a property, what we call, on hold until we can do that review process, then call back the homeowner and tell them what we were able to determine, what we found, and then allow the homeowner to make the decision from there. When I say the decision from there is whether or not the state continues forward with the tree felling operation or goes to what Supervisor Townsend says, withdrawals from the program, and then it's their responsibility and the county's responsibility to ensure that that tree is removed.
I'm sorry, I credited you with
That's
the
okay.
instruction, but
It's okay. It happens a lot.
having a contact person in the
No.
community is
David is more than welcome to have a conversation with you. What we did do in the last couple of days is make sure that our message was consistent. And so if they weren't sure, they were directed to send it back to me, just to make sure that we got out the same information, because in a community this size, especially with communications issues in general, right? We didn't want misinformation to get out there and cause greater confusion. And so that's maybe what you had heard or what you alluded to.
To kind of come to a conclusion on this, because this is one of our press concerns, it really isn't the process. I know some of us have complained, we sent pictures of live trees being cut down, there's videos of live trees being cut down, there's my tree that's completely unharmed, no fire damage whatsoever. There's a number of trees we've been trying to get some attention to and trying to get it stopped, and there is no process in place for an appeal, and I think that's really necessary. So if there was a place, like we sent Dennis pictures and videos, I sent you pictures, I sent Marcy pictures saying, what's going on, why are my trees being marked when they're not dead, and I get nothing back. So there is a review process in place, and there needs to be before they're kicked down.
So is what I heard a minute ago, contacting the gentleman okay, I'll have you answer that.
I appreciate you. So the pictures that, are you Debbie Morley?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, thank you. So Ms. Morley, the pictures that you did send me from the email, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday, forgive me for forgetting exactly which day it was. We did actually have our lead arborist and a registered professional forester take a look at that, and both of those are considered hazard trees. Just because there was a green canopy up top, those were actually dead or dying trees. For those two that you have, that you sent to me, those are actually dead or dying trees. My lead arborist and my registered professional forester both said those were hazard trees. And I appreciate the fact that you had another arborist take a look at it, but I would refer you back to the ROE. The government has the sole discretion, and I understand that you would like an appeals process, But you can also understand that we are under a timeline. This is a disaster. It's an emergency for us to be able to clear not only the debris, but the hazard tree in a certain amount of time frame. And we have to be able to do that. That's why there is no appeals process. If you disagree, your options are to withdraw from the program, which you have withdrawn, I believe, at least 2 of your properties.
Is it an option ever when the arborists are there that they can speak with us?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had several arborists speak to several community members. Ann Campbell, I spoke to directly last week with our lead arborist and went through all 3 of our properties despite them not being in the program and walked them through exactly what would be considered hazard trees or would be potentially on for the removal.
So who would we talk to about it?
You can call back the public liaison line. They usually get that back to me, and we would arrange for an arborist to either meet you on your property, which we have done several times, or we would contact someone in the field to make sure that would occur.
Is that a follow-up to this?
Yes. So,
Is Danny going to be answering?
yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
So
I think he was just wondering if I should just hang on to the microphone.
Next to my property, there's multiple trees that Edison had initially marked, and then through their process, their arborists actually deemed them safe. This was 6 months ago or whenever that was. And then last week, your guys remarked those trees that their certified arborists and foresters said were safe.
So I can't speak to Edison's program. Edison has, and I'm going to quasi say a few words just because we work with SoCal Edison and PG&E up and down the state. They have a different authority to remove trees that can obstruct and hinder their utility and power lines, in which case they can, and sir, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been my experience, take live or dead trees because they would hinder and potentially cause a fire damage. Now, I'm not on that property, sir. I'd be happy to take a look at it, but again, our lead arborists and our registered professional foresters have determined if those markings are ours, that those are hazard trees and they have to come down. If you have an objection to that, I'm happy. We have several staff here. We can take your APN, take a look at it, look it up, and I'm happy to go out there with you myself.
Dennis, did you want us to just briefly do an overview of reminder of medicines? And Jason, thank you again for the question. I'm going to, of course, nearly all of you know Jason, and Tony and Louie, our veg management team up here. So I'm going to have Jason just do a brief overview of Edison's vegetation management.
Yes, so to address your trees in particular, upper Alpine, is that where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay, so we did mark those trees initially. We were here right when the fire was still burning, still hot, visibility was very low. We decided to pull those trees off to monitor those because we're going to continue to be up here. This is not a one-shot program for Edison. We're up here all the time. We have folks that consistently patrol these lines looking for hazardous trees or trees that are growing into. We have several programs that are designed to mitigate any hazards that we may have. We remove dead trees. We've been up here doing bark beetle trees for about the last 6 years. We have another program that's called Hazard Tree Mitigation Program. Those two systems come through about every 120 days. So about, we continue to do that, and so we decided to pull your trees off, or those trees in that area in particular, because we know that we'll continue to monitor. We only want to take down trees that are a threat to our line. So anything that's in the strike zone, and strike zone being any tree that can fall in, take our lines down, cause a fire, take out the liability and reliability for your guys' service. That's what our goal is. So we have a little bit different scopes of work, for sure. Ours is to keep your power on and not knock the lines down, and theirs is mitigating foundations.
My primary point was that, certified arborist is a certified arborist. And, one guy says one thing, one guy says the other is another.
Well, and you're right, and two arborists can have different opinions. I am a certified arborist myself.
Different arborists can have different opinions.
And there's different timing too. So when we were in that area doing the tree marking, it was early fall and winter. These folks are here now in spring and summertime, so things do change over time. So, any questions?
No, my primary point was just, different arborists can have different opinions instead of just
Absolutely. You can have two arborists looking at the same tree and you can have different opinions.
I know, one second, I know Dina wanted to respond to that particular question about the different arborists.
So that is true that you could have different arborists have different opinion, but again, I go back to our arborists are track certified, ISP certified for wildfire damage, and it's overseen by a registered professional forester. That's why we have that second check. So the gentleman, I apologize, I've forgotten your name. Jason. Jason did mention that, you know, they were here earlier on in the response and they were going to watch those trees. We do not have that same luxury. We have a limited amount of time to address that 5-year window. You know, in a perfect world, we could be watching these trees over 5 years to make sure that they didn't fall down or potentially be further damaged, but we don't. FEMA, the program requires us to basically be done within a certain time frame, which is usually about a year from the date of the disaster. We are fast approaching that. And so we have to look at that scope. So as Jason mentioned, we have different scopes of work for our program. So they removed it because they were going to watch it, but that doesn't necessarily mean those trees weren't going to be deemed hazard when they came back to take a look at that. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. These are two different programs, two different scope of works, and two different timeframes that we're working on.
Thank you. And was that follow-up for Edison?
Yes, it was. We have some felled trees on our property that haven't been cleaned up. We have an idea we need to do that.
So currently, we're working on private properties to try to pick up our debris that we fell initially, so the FEMA folks were not impeding their work. We're trying to stay in front of them, and we're kind of working hand in hand with them right now so we can clear up our mess so they can get in there and safely do their work. So we do have contractors still in the area. We are in, you're in Cedar Slope. Okay, so, and after this, we can get your address and we can address that directly. We do have contracts that are being taken care of right now because we mitigated about 27,000 trees total during the fire. 9,000 of those were on private property lands. And so we're kind of working hand in hand with the FEMA folks so we can take our mess off of the property so they can come in and safely do their work. So we still do have people mitigating, but after this, I'd love to talk to you and find out where you're at.
While I'm down here, this next one was for SCE as well, and it's about the wire left behind on the ground, just piles of wire. Is somebody going to be coming back through to remove that?
Phil, is that something you know? This probably has to do with our line work or?
Yeah, so if I can get some locations and we'll get that taken care of as well.
Yeah, if we could get the locations, if you can track down either myself or Phil after the meeting, we'll look into that. Thank you.
Patricia, that was you, right? Where'd you go?
Yes.
Okay, you got it? Okay, the next one says there's a leaning tree at the corner of Trails End and Nelson Drive. Trails End and Nelson Drive. There are lines attached that will go down when the tree falls. When will it be taken down? We've been trying for 6 months. This is from Gail. That's for Jason. Okay, for Edison. Okay. Jason says he's familiar.
Yeah, so I'm super familiar with that tree. Frontier needs to take their wire off. That is not Edison facilities whatsoever. I cannot take that tree down with their wires on it.
It's going to take down your wire.
I've seen it. I know exactly which tree you're talking about. We've been trying to contact Frontier to get a pole or something replaced in there to get that wire off of that tree, so that way we mitigated the top of the tree at one point because it was a bark beetle tree, and we did take it down to try to make our facility safe, but there is still communication lines on that tree that are not ours, and Edison does not remove communication lines from tree stems or things that do not belong to us.
So that's Frontier Cable?
Or even your cable, sorry, Spectrum. Thank you. Thank you for the correction.
And all you can do is keep calling. I know, we have those in our neighborhood. We have been a problem. It's a big problem, and we just have to keep calling to find out. We call in 611 or Spectrum. Be persistent, because I know all of you call. We haven't taken care of it today, but I have.
You just had one mitigated. And then once she had the tree mitigated from, or the line was removed, we came and went ahead and picked that up. Yeah, we will take care of that.
So speaking of that, I've had 4 work orders with AT&T to remove their wiring off the crest. They're tied to trees, they're literally laying across my driveway in the branches. I have talked to superiors, I've talked to people, 3 people come out to look at it. I tell them it's a line issue and not a little line issue to the house because it's a separate team. They say, oh, we understand. They come up the next day, they say, oh, well, I'm not that team. This has been 6 months. I need you or somebody to speak up and say, enough. The trees are actually, one of them is half taken down, you guys have taken it down for me. And it still can hit the house. It's eroding underneath. I pointed this out. Their support cable is holding up. And the rest of it is branches holding up the AT&T throughout the crest. And no one's doing anything. I'm tired of us all having to call and call and call. We need one of you guys.
So you've been calling AT&T?
I've been calling AT&T. I've had work orders. I have 3 work orders that I can give you the numbers that I literally, they keep telling me this. And they have not done a single thing. I told them I'm going to rip the wire down and they ignored me. I mean, I'm just over it. It's just a frustration. It's not like it's going to do anything. But that tree that you guys have taken down needs to come down too. And it's marked. And you guys have said you can't touch this. So anyways, if maybe you can.
Yeah, can you follow up with an email to me? Just grab one of the cards and send that email, just kind of summarized, and then I can get it passed on to the. There's an AT&T government rep that we can at least try to put some leverage on them. Okay, Gordon, I can't understand what you wrote here. Can you restate it?
The statement I want to make here is that I live in City School, and it's been there since the very beginning. Here's the mic right. When your crew started coming up, there was no street signs, nobody knew where the lots were, and they were just wandering around with their GPS on their phone. And they go, we're right here. And I tell them, no, you're 100 feet off, you're over there. That's where you really are. So we need to have people come in and survey it partially and put street signs back up, even if they're temporary street signs. So your workers, when they come up there, aren't just wandering around day after day after day after day, after weeks, after months. That's my statement. I remember that call.
Sorry, I couldn't read that, Gordon. I could read most of it, but I missed the one. Oh, John. Okay.
That's what I wanted to say. Maybe I missed something because I know this call came in weeks back, and I believe we finished putting those signs up. If we missed one, let me know where.
No, I'm talking about at the beginning, the very beginning.
He's talking in the future.
Oh. The future, not now.
Oh.
In the next fire, the next fire. You did. And you did a good job.
You got it done. Gordon asked him, you got it done. Thank you. All right, thanks for that clarification. Somebody handed me a note saying Caltrans representative is on site. Is that somebody out there? Caltrans? Somebody handed me a note. Are you the Caltrans rep in the orange vest? You're the rep? You're not really? Do you want to answer any questions, or are you just working on the road? Okay. The wise man right there. Okay. Actually, were there any more of the forms, or are we past the forms? Past the forms? Okay. I'm going to start taking questions from. Go ahead, since I was looking right at you.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and if you guys are close enough, you can use that microphone.
That would help everybody. So, Riel. So my frustration recently, I actually was a huge supporter of cutting the trees. I want it removed. I want it removed. You know, I don't want to see it. If they should come down, they should come down. So I'm not against cutting the trees. I actually let people come on the property. I even gave them tools to cut trees down. So be it. But I looked out at the valley next to my cabin on Redwood, and there was trees marked, and there were numbers marked. And I asked the people there, I said, who was doing the marking, I said, which trees are coming down? It's not my property. It's not really my business, per se. So they marked a couple trees. They said, just these. I said, oh, that makes sense. And again, I understand the arborist whole situation. But to be told that there's 2, and they're only marking the 2, and then to be gone for a week for work, and come back and see this whole valley almost cleared out, ripped up, dragging live trees up the side, gashing live trees that are not even marked, and all the sand underneath the good trees that are not marked is now gone. And it's a steep slope. And I spoke to somebody up there, and they said they're going to put in erosion control. We know, da-da-da. But you're damaging the whole area as you do this project, at least in that valley. I'm only speaking for the valley next to the house, which also, if that undermines, the cabin's going to become undermined. Are you guys going to be taking responsibility for that?
So the answer to that quick question is no, we're not responsible for the hill stabilization of that property. I would need to know the actual APN to truly address that, and since it's not your APN, I really need to be able to talk to the homeowner about that, because legally I can only do that.
Right.
However, I'm certainly willing to take a look at what you're talking about. It's kind of hard to describe without actually knowing the APN specifically, so I can take a look at what is there, and then also to understand, as Jason had mentioned, we're working in tandem and we're working in the same areas, so they're potentially, and I'm not going to put SoCal in the hot seat, I promise you, Jason, but there is several properties, and Jason knows this, that where we are literally working on the same property or adjacent to those properties where you can sort of get that effect. So honestly, I would have to know what the APN is, and I'm happy to take a look at that and review it if it's in our program and have that discussion with the homeowner.
And Jason is
so there.
Yeah. Are you still working in the crest removing trees?
Yeah, we haven't removed anything in probably 4 months.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But without an APN, I can't specifically say.
I saw somebody on this side that I saw your hand shot up. Maybe it was you. Okay, go ahead.
Dina, thank you. I never signed a right of removal form. As a matter of fact, I did a withdrawal form, but the one that the county sent me was just 1 page. I didn't know that there was this more voluminous personal removal form until 2 days ago. I'd be more than happy to sign the form by July 31st. I just want somebody to walk through my property with me. I have 16 acres up on Redwood Drive and say, here's what we're going to do, just generally, not specifically, so that I can have my own mitigation efforts that I've been working on and my own cleanup. And I can't really do that without, a little more communication, a little more support.
Dan had mentioned to me before that he's talking about hazard trees only.
Okay.
No debris, just hazard.
Okay. But you mentioned that.
I have no issues there.
Gotcha. So, but you mentioned in the beginning that you had not filled out a right of entry form.
I did not.
Okay. So you're not in the state program. So technically, I can't go on your property to assess it without that right of entry form.
If someone will just agree to support me a little bit, I'll sign forms.
Explain that again, Dan, what you mean by that.
I want someone.
So I think you would.
I want a scope of work. I like a job walk. I like somebody to just say, hey, here's what we're gonna do with your property.
So normally, actually, we do allow that for homeowners that once you fill out the right of entry form, we let you know that we're going to be on the property. You do have that option of requesting to do what we call sort of a walkthrough to understand what the scope of work is on your property. Technically, it is too late for anyone in the community to submit a right of entry form. The deadline to submit a right of entry form was actually in February.
Okay.
However,
says it's July 31st.
No, the July 31st is for the county local alternative program.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Okay.
Yeah. However, I have made case-by-case exceptions for several of the folks in the community that were either completely impacted by COVID, were living in another state, wasn't aware that there was a program, and so I have included several homeowners in either just the hazard tree only, where you did not have debris damage, into the program. I can look at it on a case-by-case basis, but I'm running up against a deadline. So if it's something that you would like to consider, I would say to take a look at the right of entry form, and then we could have a conversation potentially about your property. But again, I can't make a statement of scope of work without that.
I want Mike Washington real quick with RMA to talk about that county deadline on the, is that what it is?
Just to give a kind of an update on where we're at. The The debris removal has been completed through the state. There's probably about 26, 27 parcels that were identified as having destroyed structures that didn't participate in the state program and have not yet entered the alternative program through the county. Now, the deadline for that was in the past, we extended it a couple times. Ultimately now the deadline is the end of this month, July 31st. So where we're looking at the state as far as debris removal, and that's just a handful, hopefully and gladly, is around 26 parcels. And those people, those landowners have a choice between now and the end of the month to get into the alternative program. And now both program, whether you go through the alternative program or do it through the other alternatives, the county's going to have to go in and abate. Right. It's going to be much more expensive to the landowner if the county has to do that, because we have processes of how we have to procure the contracts and all that. It would be much less expensive, considerably, if those people choose to do the alternative program, hire their own contractors, and do that program. So I would encourage anybody, if anybody is in that situation, to do that. I'll tell you that we are getting completion sign-offs now from the state. I've signed up, the state signs off ultimately of the ultimate parcel cleanup of about 12 parcels right now, and that's the debris removal's been signed off, and there is no tree hazard on there anymore. So we've cleared that. So those are ready to issue building permits if people are coming back in for that. Just a word on building permits too. We have just a few building permits that have come in. We're willing to take them in, start reviewing them, and start that process even prior to the final sign-off, but we can't issue the building permit until the property has gone through that final sign-off. Yeah. You want to go to the mic?
No, I did.
Oh, you did? Good. Yeah, okay. All right. Yes, in the back.
I have a question, but first I have a statement I'd like to make. We have a cabin in Camp Nelson, and thankfully our cabin is not destroyed by fire. We thank God for that every day. However, there are, and you folks up here have done a heck of a job just going there, first fighting the fire, and then cleaning up a lot of the mess that's just such a tremendous sadness to look at. And what I would encourage you folks to do is realize, and maybe you do, you're not stupid people, but just realize how much so many of these folks up in the crest have lost, and a lot of times all they need is an ear. Somebody that will listen to them and maybe not change their mind, might change your mind, but at least give them the decency of a hearing to hear them out. You know, let them say, okay, this tree is not dead. And explain to them why you would have to take it out now. Maybe you don't have a good explanation. I don't know. But I don't want you guys to feel like this whole community is against you just because they've been impacted in such a tremendous way. And I would venture to guess that none of you folks up on that table have lost a cabin to fire. Maybe you have. I don't know. But when you've lost something like that, it tears at your heart, you know? And so that's a statement I want to make. Because it seems like we get into this you against us mentality, and voices raised, everybody gets hot, you know? And usually when that happens, there's not a heck of a lot that gets done, you know, except for a, quote, FEMA program. You know, I didn't know when FEMA became God, but my estimation, they're not. And, you know, if you have deadlines, and I don't know which one you folks are FEMA, but when you have deadlines, a lot of times those deadlines are pretty darn arbitrary. And it's usually based on the almighty dollar. How much time can we spend here? Now we got to move on, you know? And somebody said, well, we have to get this tree out of here because it still has some salvageable value if if we wait for 2 years, it's probably not going to be worth anything to the lumber mill. So let's do it now. Let's just get rid of it. I mean, I guess that can be a viable criteria. But why this arbitrary 5-year period? I mean, there's a lot that happens in 5 years. I would bet that not very many of you folks will still be sitting behind the table in 5 years. You know? So what's the harm to give it a little time? Take out the trees that are obviously damaged and quote hazard trees. But if there's some trees that have a chance of making it, keep an eye on them, watch them. Homeowners will tell you which ones are getting worse. You know, and if that same 5-year criteria was in place when the bark beetle was raising its little butt around here, we would not have a single ponderosa pine in Camp Nelson all the way down to us. They would have all been taken out because the chance of that tree becoming a dead tree in 5 years was pretty darn high. We lost 13 trees on our property. And 6 months before we lost any of them, they were all green. They all were healthy. You know, so things can happen obviously very quickly. So my question is, why not take a breath and get the bad trees out of there, and then you come back? You guys, FEMA works with contractors. FEMA doesn't have all of its own crew out here, and they got to finish the project, and now they got to move to the bootleg fire in Oregon or wherever, you know, and I respect that. But FEMA does work with contractors, and why not wait? You know, 2 years down the road, come back, assess it all. Okay, this tree's getting worse and worse, so let's get it out of there.
I'll have Dina come back and talk about the FEMA/OES, the 5-year thing. I want to address a couple of things because you put quite a bit out there. One thing was I was the one that mentioned the 2-year marketability, and that was specifically in regards to the demonstration forest where they do timber sales. That was not regarding up here. Just stating that they had the same policy of 5-year, saying if it was going to die in 5 years, they'd consider it a hazard tree. But the marketable portion was when their forester did say that it's going to die, then they did go ahead and say, let's go ahead and use the marketable ones, because they do have timber sales. And they wanted to go ahead and gain some money back into the program. The other thing I wanted to address is you had mentioned, and I think everybody takes your point really well as we started off the meeting, that you guys have lost so much up here. And one thing I really want to address is a lot of the people that are sitting up here were up here during that whole time. A lot of them put in double time and more during that time, a lot of sleepless nights to go through to address Tulare County's largest wildfire in history. And so a lot of them that are sitting up here on this panel, not myself, I wasn't the one that was up here fighting, but a lot of the ones that are represented up here were involved in that from both sides of this panel. So just wanted to point that out before I hand it over to Dina to specifically address the 5-year again. Okay?
Thank you, sir, both for your statement and for your question. So I'm going to try to hit all of the points that you mentioned, but you had started off saying that you were lucky in the fire and you're grateful for that. And then you had asked if anybody up here had maybe experienced something similar. So I want to be able to respond to you respectfully on that. Have I personally lost a home in a wildfire? No. However, I have spent the last 6 years working for Cal-OES, working on every single major disaster that California has faced in the last 6 years. And in that period of time, most especially during the Camp Fire, I did have family, friends, and coworkers who lost their homes in that fire. And I was the one that was responsible for helping to clean up that community. So I do understand. I cannot begin to imagine to be in your shoes directly. I don't think anybody can. Everybody's story is unique. But we do very much try to listen and hear what the residents have to say, because you all have been through a lot. Every single person on my crew from state staff on down to the field level crew, the folks that have been mentioned today, David Bedoin, and some others. They are all here to listen and to help the community recover as best as possible. We do understand that, and we do take the time. I'm sorry that there are folks potentially in this audience that do not feel that way, but we do take the time to listen. We do try to address every concern that comes up because I do understand. I really do. That's why I do what I do. That's why I come out here to help communities, is because I do understand and I empathize. So I just wanted to let you know that personally. And I will mention that during the campfire, my aunt and uncle were able to get out, but they escaped barely from that fire and almost lost their lives. So I do get it. It does hit home and personally to me. Beyond that, regarding the 5-year time frame, I can certainly understand your sentiment about the 5-year time frame. It is an industry standard right now, is to take a look at hazard trees. This is a new program that FEMA has started largely during the campfire because it devastated that community. When I was working that particular fire, there was potentially upward of 600,000 trees that were potentially deemed as a hazard that would impact that community's ability to recover economically, but just be able to rebuild, et cetera. And so we've worked with FEMA in the past of trying to determine the best possible way to address the hazard trees. But as you pointed out, we are on deadlines, and it isn't actually about the money. FEMA provides us the money in order to fund the programs. So the FEMA is providing us the money, and they do some of the oversight, but it isn't their contractors. It is working with the state and the county to work with the staff out here. We have the contractors that are out here that are doing this program. And the time frame is meant that when you declare a state of emergency, and within that state of emergency, there are usually conditions and things that specifically adhere to that emergency. So specifically for a wildfire is to remove the ash and debris that may cause environmental concerns with or health within the public. And potentially for the trees, right? You all live in this extremely beautiful Sequoia National Park. This whole area is unbelievably beautiful. This is actually the first time I've actually been up in Sequoia National Park, and I'm blessed to be here. Excuse me.
Giant sequoia.
Giant sequoia. I apologize. But this is the first time I've been up in this area, and I can certainly see why the residents are extremely passionate about this area. It's beautiful. But at the same time, it's also, as the other firefighters that are up here and U.S. Forest Service will understand, is that there is a forest management aspect of making sure that we don't have fuel for the next fire, right? We're trying to remove the hazards as best we can to prevent the next devastation to your community. The time frame has to do with when you declare it an emergency, you declare that you need to remove the ash and debris as soon as possible so that you remove that public health hazard. The same applies to trees. We have to be able to remove it within a specific time frame. It is not about money. It is about removing the potential hazard for the community. So I don't know if that satisfies your question or your statement. I'm happy to discuss with you further, but that's sort of the kind of overview.
Okay, get you in the back there, yeah.
Yeah, well, is it possible that, with all due respect, that we're all ignorant as to the real reason why these trees are tagged? As a contractor and person in life, I understand that everybody's got selfish motives. And to come in and remove trees, perhaps the contract gets different when there's some nice trees coming their way, and they end up in their yards and whatnot. So as in when there's a murder trial, there's a jury that's selected. Similarly, maybe the arborists could not be skewed if they are. And also similarly, I'll just be finished with this, when you need to get an appraisal done on a house, if you know that appraiser, you're probably going to get it pretty close to what you're telling them. So, perhaps there's a little skew. Perhaps there should be more of a jury, so to speak, on the arborist. That's all I'm going to say.
So I think if I can paraphrase what you're going for is basically, does the contractor benefit from potentially taking more trees or profit off the taking of trees, whether it's less or more. And so the state contract is actually built so that the person doing the tree felling is not the person that's doing the deciding or determination that it's a hazard tree. Those are two separate contracts to avoid that for that very reason. So we have a consultant that hires the arborist, so there is no connection between the two of those, that goes out and takes a look at the trees to determine they're hazardous to the public road or public infrastructure, and then they give the direction and where that tree is. So we GPS locate every tree, put a barcode on it, you might have seen that. And then we give that to the tree felling contractor, who goes then and takes down those trees. So there is a separation between those two.
Thank you. I saw, okay, right there.
Hey, Dennis. Jim Parmenter from Ponderosa. My question is completely different subject matter, and it will, to you, Johnny Long, CHP, and Tulare County.
Well, I'm glad, Jim, because I was about ready to say some of these guys are probably getting bored.
Okay, this has to do with snow and snow removal, and the burnt trees from 190 down 107 to Ponderosa. As we all know, High Sierra Snow Removal is no longer contracting for that area. My major reason for this is I have a lot of medical coming up through the winter. Are we going to keep those roads open, Johnny? And will we always have one emergency lane for emergency vehicles if needed during the winter? So that would be to the CHP and Johnny. No.
Always. Well, Jim, I know the issue that's going on, and I know that the prior person that used to do the snow removal decided not to do that anymore. And it's not just the county, but I believe it's to the Ponderosa CSD also. So have we been making some contacts with the CSD? Yes. I think they have plans on what they want to do on their portion, not so much ours, in terms of the 2-mile section. Have we tried reaching out to contractors in the area? Yes, we have. Doesn't seem like that is an option. If not, then it'll fall back to us to get that going until such time we find another alternative. So we'll do the best that we can to keep those lanes open and to make it safe for everybody else.
Yeah. Where there always be one lane for emergency vehicles at all times.
We will give it our best shot to keep that thing open.
Are you talking about Western Pike?
Well, yeah, Mount 107 from 190 to the Ponderosa stop sign.
Right. Our jurisdiction is where Caltrans ends, and it goes to Aspen, and then Aspen to Tamarack. That's a 2-mile stretch. So we definitely, we're going to give it our best shot to keep that open. If we can't find it.
There's nothing definite at this time.
Well, the thing is, we will be there. The question is how quick can we get there, right? So there is some travel time as we're coming down from the Redwood Drive area, coming up the hill and plowing. Now, Caltrans has a little bit of work there also. You know, we can't get up there. Caltrans plows there's also. So we do have a set of plans in place, or a plan in place to try to keep this thing open as much as we can.
So you couldn't tell me if there's going to be 2 or 3 day delays like there was back in the past?
2 or 3 days delays?
Yeah. Back when the DCSD or PTOA used to do their own snow removal.
Well, here goes the thing. I'm not sure. Are you talking about my 2-mile stretch, or are you talking within?
Your 2-mile stretch.
Now, I have to say, you catch me off guard when you're telling me it's a 2-day delay there, because we did have a contractor that was working that part of it.
No, I don't mean from High Sierra. I mean back in the 70s when I was living here, and there were times that road was not open for 2 or 3 days.
I don't see that. I mean, that's a long stretch. You know, barring something catastrophic happening, that's not our intent to have it like that.
I understand it.
Yeah.
No matter what, John, you can't get up under Caltrans gets you there to that road, right? Is that what you're saying?
That is true. I mean, when our other contractor was doing the work, I mean, okay, let's say they did do the work and they had it all cleared out. Caltrans and New York could have done anyway. It's a collaborative effort between everybody to keep these things open.
Did you not last year have a piece of equipment up there at the gate so that they could plow that road? That was closed if they needed to. So if you have that and that still not be up there and have somebody that can get up there and use that piece of equipment, open from Aspen to North Road?
That's always a possibility. There was a reason why we did what we did last year, of course. We didn't want anything to happen for which you could not get out at a very short period
And
of
that's what
time.
he's in reference to, that's what.
Understand. We'll have to look at that portion of it also. There's a lot of pieces that we need to take a look at, and we have been. But last year was, and the other times when Highway 190 washed out, we did something similar also. But that is something that we will entertain. We'll take a look at that. Okay.
Well, while you're entertaining it, you might want to know that there's a lot of work in the gym who have medical situations up there. So taking a look at that, it's kind of wonderful, but, you know, I didn't hear much of a commitment, but we'll make sure that you guys are as safe as we can make it. Her alternative is a logic curve, okay? I mean, then you're not waiting and saying, oh, geez, Caltrans, blame it on someone else.
Well,
so
there's no blame here. I don't see that as blame. I see it as collaboration between both Caltrans and us, and we've always been working very well. Unfortunately, when we did lose that contractor up there, that puts a little bit of a bind on us here. But at the same time, we're going to try to make that the best situation that we can for what we got here. I can't say that we're going to leave 107 open. We did those for a certain reason, right? So we are going to try to, we're going to give it our best shot to keep that type of service that you've been accustomed to when you had the contractor there. But I'll have to say, most likely, there is going to be a little bit of a longer lag time before we get up there.
We have a follow-up right here.
Dennis, getting back to the inspector tree we just talked about, I appreciate the CA explaining their position about it. On the other hand, this is something we've been watching for 6 months, trying to reach the appropriate authority to do something about. It's an accident about to happen. Probably within the next month, this tree is ready to be 45 degrees on Nelson Drive. Within the next month, we're going to lose all our power, telephones that are electrical. Last time this happened, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I had the same problem trying to get a report. I was told I was on the list. The tree fell for 3 months. We did not have telephone service. Is it at all possible for you to contact Spectrum from your office and see if you can get on the dime before the tree falls? It takes out all of Nelson Drive and all the National Streets.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. If you don't mind, send me an email just with all that description on there, and then I will follow up with them and see if we can help to put some pressure on them for doing that. Go ahead.
Lieutenant Camacho, a couple of years ago, I met with Kevin Kelly and told him about the situation with the road not being open from North Road to North Road to Ponderosa. And he said that in a dire strait of emergency, he gave me his cell number, his email, we could call and they would have a helicopter. Is that for search and rescue? In case of a dire emergency, where there was something that we really needed someone, no one could get out. Is that still viable?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's all I needed to know, because I got all that information, and he said, if there's something that came up and you needed somebody immediately, call.
If you need help, you call us and we'll be there. Okay, yeah, if it's for him, go ahead and ask it.
Totally unrelated to any of those questions. There is an issue with the parking along the side of the road, people accessing the river. They're pulling in, it's no parking area, and people that communicate up and down the road many times have had people pull out in front of them, backing up. It's dangerous, they're leaving trash. What can we do to keep that from happening? They're wanting to access the river. And they're making U-turns in the middle of the road. It's very dangerous, and it also could cause another fire with them bringing stuff down there.
Thank you for the question. Again, my name is Scott Goddard. I'm the commander of the California Highway Patrol's Porterville office. Joining me today in the back of the room is Officer Tyrone Bowser. He's assigned to our resident post. Our resident post covers everything east of Springville. That will be in his jurisdiction and his responsibility. The fact that he is here today, he's hearing firsthand. We have a complaint process that we use in our office. If you call our local office, we'll take your information, have a traffic complaint form. He will go out and be aggressive in his enforcement. in that area. We are aware, we're obviously concerned about traffic safety, making U-turns, parking where it's illegal. Some of the issues have to do with the fact, are they signed properly? A sign can be there, but they're legally not fitting the definition. He is up on that and can take appropriate enforcement action for what he witnesses and sees on the side of the road. He will be happy to meet with you, talk with you individually. I will as well. And I also brought my resident post supervisor, Brian Hunt, up here today. And we'll be happy to discuss it with that further with you.
I got a bigger job than just he can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, when you talk about over a weekend, when you have hundreds of vehicles coming up with the intent of not coming up to visit a cabin or to visit a property, they're coming up to find refreshment, have outdoor family fun. They park the vehicle, they float in some locations, they just wade in another portion, but they park a vehicle at one and then they go down another location. It does compound the problem. Yes, it's not one that he can handle on his own. We can send additional units up to provide enforcement with that as well and provide focus. Social media, we can also take advantage of as well to get the message out to those people that are following on a regular social media.
And they're polluting too. I mean, there's tons of trash. It's not a new problem.
Correct.
Who cleans up that trash?
Right now, pretty much volunteer.
That would be a volunteer issue since it's off the roadway. I mean, probably get a feeling and sometimes where some people kind of push responsibility to other agencies. Ours is focused actually on 190, but that is actually something that I'm unaware of an individual or group that does that.
So Mike know a little bit.
Well, I think all of you know the problem there with trash. The Forest Service does try, but we can't keep up with it. We are, for example, I mean, I myself went out on Memorial Day and 4th of July and tried to help. And it's discouraging because you go down there, you pick up a bag of trash, and literally when I got to the parking lot, there were people that were throwing trash down in front of me and I had my uniform on. And so it's very challenging. We have our law enforcement officers who help us out. We have forest protection officers that are regular Forest Service employees that we've had deputized in a way to be able to help out. We only have one law enforcement officer. He's back here today with us and he's awesome. But we can only do so much with keeping up on that in terms of giving people tickets, but we are giving tickets. We are. We could use, for example, we're doing a volunteer drive to try to get to help with the stairs right now. Evan Topal, who's our recreation staff officer, is looking for people to help volunteer with any trash pickup days that we have. So honestly, that's one thing that can really help us, but it's difficult for people to take time out of their busy lives to help us. But if you ever have any time or energy and you want to help, we'll get you set up to help us out on a volunteer day. And we're also open to any suggestions that people have to try to help. So very, very challenging situation.
There's one over here that was first. Go ahead.
I have a question that's probably CHP, maybe more. On the weekends, especially Lower Coffee Camp, early in the morning they line up and there'll be up to 30 cars that are like waiting for the gates to open. And they're all the way, they're blocking the whole road. And I don't know what can be done, but it's it's really dangerous. And then you have sometimes, you see backed up too with the big trucks that are coming in and stuff too, as well as, you can't go around.
My officer in the resident post primarily works on the weekends. So he is scheduled that way intentionally, typically has more weekdays off. We still have 24-hour coverage available in the area, but he is primarily focused on that. If I need to adjust his hours, he start earlier, we can do that. We can have him work later. There is some unpredictability that tends to wind up being of benefit. If you know when he works, people tend to obey the law. If you know he's not working at a time or location. I will tell you that on a typical weekend, he doesn't start at about 7 o'clock, and I can adjust that for that exact reason from time to time. One of the things we want to do is when we know people come up to the river, go up to the water, they drink alcohol, they become impaired, and they drive down the road while they're intoxicated. The idea of that obviously is the case where once they've gone and enjoyed themselves maybe too much, they're driving down the road, he wants to be on the roadway at that time at a later time in the day. It does not remove the fact that there's 24-hour responsibility for the highway patrol, and I can have more individuals up there in the morning with a focus toward parking. Obviously worried about vehicles stopping on 190 and those types of roads where it's people coming around curves, those types of situations where we can address that. So it sounds like, as we know, there's multiple issues, multiple prongs to the problem. So if it's a traffic issue in the morning that's parking, we can address that while we're still wanting to maintain our safety aspect with respect to the evening and the afternoons.
I think it's usually Saturday and Sunday it's the worst. I mean, that's
Correct.
hotter, the more, but I mean, you can't even, I mean, it's totally, parked in the road, you can't.
We will make note of that, and I will guarantee there'll be additional enforcement to that. I'm seeing hands fly up now.
It doesn't open until 8. The gates are closed by the contract till 8. So they're there early, starting at 7 o'clock, backed up. She's not exaggerating. It's all the way up the hill, clear around the corner.
Okay.
The whole lane's long.
We will address that.
Let's get you right here, because you've been waiting for a long time.
Well, I wanted to ask Teresa. And so, now that everything's said and done, and I do want to commend everybody up here, people with CAL FIRE, and the mitigation has been going on with SC&E and Low Breeze running around. It's made this place a lot better. But what I want to ask you guys, if you had time to review any of your policies and procedures that may keep us safer. I mean, over there on the Kern Plateau, that is our real danger, right? And somehow that fire was there for a month before it jumped over the top and came down. And I thank to God that you sent somebody to my house and told me, hey, what we're afraid of is that fire's going to come up the backside, it's going to jump over the top, and it's going to race down here. That was 2 days before the fire actually hit here. So I'm real thankful. But we need to look at the procedures and things. I mean, why can't the government, I know the fire, you wanted it to go up into the Golden Trout Wilderness. I mean, I understand that. That's where it was headed. But you have, the Forest Service, you got the monument, you have, different groups managing this. Why can't, you have like a strike team, when there's a fire that immediately hits an area, why can't you just jump on that sucker, put it out, don't let it go crazy?
Let me just talk a little bit about, I'm going to talk a little bit about this year to date, and then a little bit about last year. But just so that you know for this year, and it's in your folder here. So just this last week, for example, on the Sequoia National Forest, we had 11 fires. 11 fires that we had initial attack on, and 11 fires that we were able to contain with our crews. We had one fire that started on private in Kern County that we're fighting right now. It moved from private to BLM, and it's now in the Paiute Mountains. That one was a sleeper from the lightning storms that we had come through on Sunday evening. Everything else, we were able, luckily, to be on it immediately with the crews that we have. Those are our local crews that we've been able to keep here locally and not have them go off to other fires that are currently burning in California, which I'm sure you all have heard about, Northern California and Oregon right now. We're getting constant pressure to have our crews leave and go there. We're very fortunate to be able to keep what we have here, and we fight every day to keep as many people as we can here. But we are a national resource, and my direction only goes so far in terms of my boss, and then the chief of the Forest Service can tell me, nope, your crews are going to Oregon, period. So we are a national resource. We rely on our partners, county and state, to help as well when we have fires here, and they help us out with a lot of the different fires that occur on the Sequoia National Forest. So just so that everybody is 100% knowledgeable about our stance, we are in full suppression mode on every fire that occurs on the Sequoia National Forest this year. There are no what we call managed fires that will be occurring, and that includes in the wilderness. But I also have to tell you, with the Castle fire that occurred last year, From the very first day of that fire, it was a full suppression fire. The very first day, we sent 4 crews of 20 people in. They hiked in, and they could not put a line around that fire. It was very rocky, steep terrain, very challenging country, and the fire was able, because of the wind and the fuels in the area, the fire was able to get too big too fast. And so within the 3rd day, we had a team that came in, took the fire over from our local folks, and from that point on, August 23rd, all the way to the day it was contained, which was January 1st, 2021, we literally had teams assigned to that fire to help us because it was that challenging. That being said, we are dealing with over 100 years of fire suppression in this country. There are many, many years where the Forest Service did not advocate for prescribed burning, for fuels reduction, and we're paying for that now. We have fires now that are bigger, it's hotter, it's more aggressive, we have a lot of fuels, we have the bark beetle, we have mortality, but we're not just going to say that these fires are going to be able to take over. We're going to stay in there and fight every fire that we can that comes in. We've got great crews, we've got a lot of resources, but I do want you to know that you've got the commitment from your local federal government, and I know the state and the county, I'll let them speak for themselves, but we all are working together to make sure that we can suppress everything that we possibly can. That's where we are in 2021.
Okay, so currently we have no fire resistance.
That's not true. No, we have fire, we do. So here's what we do have.
But remember, be aware, you don't man them all the time, like
Right.
Will Peak's not manned, Jordan
Right.
Burnett gave up on the Eagles. There's nothing, is there anything really?
So we have what's called alert wildfire cameras. Are you familiar with that?
So it's new technology.
Yep, so we have, so I've been using them every day. I'm sure that these guys use them too. But we have, and you can get on alert wildfire cameras. Have you been on it? Okay, so we have cameras everywhere now. They're on all of our lookouts. For example, right now, the peak fire in Paiute Mountains, I can get on there if I have Wi-Fi every minute and see what that fire is doing with the 2 cameras that are set up in Breckenridge. It's exactly like having a lookout, but I can, with my phone, iPad, laptop, whatever, I can monitor every single fire on the forest. I've got a camera on it. That can be really addicting, I'm just warning you, because I watched the peak fire every hour. I was watching what was going on, and we literally, within 4 hours of that fire starting, called a team in. I was texting my folks saying, this fire's got potential, it's heading to the Paiutes, da-da-da-da-da. They're like, Teresa Benson, you're in Porterville, what the heck? So yeah, our fire folks now have our eyes on stuff, and you can do it too. And people are talking about alert wildfire cameras all over the state. We just got them installed for this year. I'm not saying that lookouts aren't great, because I love our lookouts. They're a terrific resource. We want to keep our lookouts, but this is a supplement to that, and it's something that you can monitor from your home.
So I'm going to jump over here if you wait for a while. Go ahead.
Hi, this is regarding Ponderosa. Your answers regarding the snow, definitely you should try a little bit harder. You keep saying we're going to work on that, we're going to work on it. But we need that road open. We're a community, we have families, children up there. And it needs to be on it, I mean, try a little bit harder to make that. And not only that, there's the back road that goes to Kernville. I know that has to be closed, but like last year it was closed the whole entire time when there was days that it was clear open. So is there any way, like the Forest Service or somebody to go unlock the gate, open it up when it's clear? I know you guys don't want a lot of traffic going on, but if the roads are clear, and then, if a storm comes, close, you know what I mean? I don't think it should be closed all year round, or all during the season when they're clear. That's our other way out. And it's clear down there.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to open, close, open, close. When you look at the work, when you look at the black ice, when you look at the rocks that could be
I'm
falling.
saying it is clear. Like there's days, because I hike, and like I was I'm a hiker, and so I know what's going on. And we were talking to Rick.
I understand, and it seems like every year we open up the divide earlier and earlier. In the past, it was right before Mother's Day. We depending on how the weather is and how mild it is, we open it sooner and sooner. I think.
I'm not talking about when you guys open it up sooner. I'm talking about during the snow season when.
Well, that's when we have the problem. I've been caught with that many times. I open it up because it looks clear, and then boom, something happens.
Right, I understand.
And then CHP calls me and says, hey, look, people have gone in here, they got trapped, they can't get out, it's a dangerous situation. Unfortunately, with it being unpredictable, we do leave it closed, but we do open it much earlier. As I mentioned, these couple of times we were back there cleaning things up, and it takes work and it takes manpower also. I do understand what you're saying.
But that road, I mean, from here to Porterville, I mean, somebody's got to be plowing it, it's got to be on it.
Unfortunately, at this point, 107 and 50 is closed due to safety that we
No,
feel.
I'm talking about the snow season from, Ponderosa to Porterville.
Yes,
So,
yes.
your job, we have a little bit of time to get on until it starts snowing, so.
I know. And we will be working on that because we definitely, like what Jim says, back in the 70s, and thank God it's not the 70s now, it's the 2000s, and I feel we've done much better than two or 3 days. Unfortunately, at times when things happen beyond my control, if it happens, nobody likes 2 or 3 days. Not at all.
And also, I have questions about water up in Ponderosa.
Okay.
We're at stage 4 right now. We've already lost the tank, and we're getting ready to go to stage 5 and 6. Anyways, who's gonna? This is the water guy.
Yeah, Tim's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
Tim's got it under control. Just one thing real quick about that, about Ponderosa, is that the county's right now trying to use some of the ARPA funds that came down that were identified. Some of those were identified for water, so we're trying to push some of that out. We're looking at pushing some of that out to the community service districts, including Ponderosa. There's nothing set in stone. We're reviewing it, trying to see the rules, come out and change all the time. But one of the things that's our priority for those funds, that is one of those things, is to take care of any problems of aging systems or systems that are broken. And then also through the state, there are a lot of wildfire monies that have been put out, and especially if there was any damage, if there's any nexus, whether water was taken out, like in your case of the lake or pond, that there's a nexus to the actual fire. Cole Carr, who used to be with Congressman McCarthy's office, is now with the Community Service District Association, and he's already went to the state lobbying for funds for Ponderosa and other CSCs for that very issue. So it's on everybody's radar for sure. I had one over here I wanted to get to. Are you done with yours? I know. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask the Forest Service and Highway Patrol.
Actually, there's 2. You back there. Okay.
Can you guys enforce the litter law? You can make it a ton of money.
If we witness it,
Yeah.
if we witness someone dump trash, we will take appropriate enforcement action. If it's there and we don't witness it, we don't have anyone to go after. But yes, California, Governor Newsom has determined that, and that's all I can say, has determined that cleanup is a priority in the state.
The governor has allocated funds. I'm very pleased to see that. I've traveled out of state and see other states are in much better shape than ours is. I hope it's successful. My officers are encouraged to take appropriate action for any violation that they observe. Littering is very important, and it's unsightly, and we all pay the price for individuals making very poor decisions.
I'm just wondering, as a homeowner and a taxpayer in Tulare County, I've called the Forest Service building itself several times and asked why there are trucks with one person in the truck driving past with bags of trash. The bags sitting on the side of the road that somebody's at least trying and leaves it there. And then in the same breath, can I access the Forest Service dumpster and dump it if I pick it up as a concerned citizen? You know, I mean, it just makes me nuts, and I've been here for 40 years.
So what Forest Service dumpster specifically?
The one on the property right there in Springfield, the dumpster. Your dumpster on the Forest Service.
At the Forest Service office?
Yes. So if I pick up the trash, I mean,
Come on up, Denise, because that's her office, so.
That's my office. And I would be happy if it wasn't already full, but it doesn't belong to the Forest Service. It actually belongs to the building owner. And if it's actually, the lids are lifted at all, the trash company will not pick it up.
I get that, okay.
And so, you know, if you are picking up trash from the National Forest as a volunteer, we have no issues with you dumping trash in the trash can as long as it's picked up on Thursdays.
Okay.
So recognize that if it's, you know, over the weekend and the janitor who does the office cleaning nightly needs to have space in the dumpster in order to dump trash from the office, which isn't a lot, right, especially right now during this pandemic. You're welcome to dump those pick bags that you see, as, you know, in our dumpster.
I also would like to know, as a taxpayer and resident of Tulare County, why it's up to me. Why you guys have trucks going with one person in the truck, why they can't pull over and pick up the bags.
So our folks do pull over and pick up a lot of bags.
I've never seen one, I've been here 40 years.
Okay, well, I've seen a lot of Forest Service employees pick up a lot of bags of trash, including myself. But one thing that I can tell you is that as we're going up the hill to go to work in the morning.
I'm talking about down the
Okay, as you're going down the hill, then it's not going to be 100% that they're going to stop and pick everything up.
I don't expect that,
So-
just the things that are bad.
Yep,
Just give
and I can definitely put the word back out to folks that, hey, when you have the opportunity in the room in the back of your truck, please do that. I have no problem encouraging our employees to do that. I just want you to know that they are committed to being able to pick up as much of that, because what happens is the wildlife comes in.
Absolutely.
And it goes all over the place and we have to start it all over again. So I will, because you brought it up, I will definitely encourage our folks to continue doing that.
I appreciate that.
Yep,
As
okay.
a homeowner and a taxpayer, I
Yep.
appreciate that.
Got it. We will definitely keep on that as much as we can.
Okay, go ahead.
Mine's back to CHP on the stairs, parking, Tyrone. That's a bigger job than Tyrone down. While Tyrone's down there spending all day Saturday and Sunday right between stolen cars, the rest of 190 is going to hell. We need better double yellow enforcement along 190 because it's become a no man's land. I've had 2 mirror strikes in the last month.
Wow.
I had one last Friday. It's a $700 repair bill now.
Wow.
And I'm on an inside curb. There's nowhere for me to go.
But there's nowhere to be approved.
Yes, it's a he said, she said when it happens. You know?
Right.
So 2:30 this afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon, especially on a Friday. Come back up, it's a racetrack going down. It's all these little guys getting off to the tree crews and everything in their own personal cars, and it's a race down. And they're yellow line cutters like crazy, and they're all on blind curves. Even the Arbor Works trucks, they're over too. So there's no price to pay now for them doing that because Tyrone's busy playing with the trash cleanup guy at the stairs along the river, you know?
I understand. It's an issue where every issue is very important. It's a managing the time that we have available. He is aware. He can take action when he sees it. He needs to balance some of his enforcement and then coming down to enforcing over the double yellow. I understand.
He's having to spend 2 shifts at the river right to check us for parking. He can't, there's nobody on 190 to do anything.
You're absolutely right, sir. I can't argue. I don't have an argument to say other than I know that the effort that he puts forth, number one, will always be traffic safety. More so than parking. And maybe some in the room don't want to hear that parking is not the absolute number one issue. We will address it, okay? We will take appropriate action for that. But his number one enforcement responsibility is to ensure the roadways are safe. As he balances and tries to address every community, every individual's concern, he's taken away from some of that. I have limited resources, right? I can bring more people up the road. We can have some officers from the floor, that we call it, basically are down toward Porterville, come up and assist them at those times and locations. Your safety, the entire motoring public safety, is a top priority. It's what the Highway Patrol is designed for, it's what our intention is, it's what our mission is. We will take the appropriate action for the violations that we observe, and we will make sure that we have officers dedicated to that area to take the action that you've described.
One more little point, and it's probably not you, but maybe you. We just came back from 101 Santa Barbara yesterday. About 25 miles outside of Santa Barbara, there's a large turnout area where people are parking and stuff. Big sign there, litter will result in closure of this area. Did that not be deadline down there somewhere? It's actually a Caltrans sign.
So we have done that, and some of you probably know of the areas that we have closed in the past on the forest. I will be honest with you, when we've put those signs up, Dennis is going to get a lot of phone calls, and so are all your other elected officials, because
His job is.
yep. But we have to be very conscientious about closing areas. We do put up the signs that basically tell people, you know, if you trash this area, it will no longer be available for you. And I think that it's a great idea. There's actually
You have to follow through it.
Yep.
Like, close it now.
You can't keep correcting your kid. Eventually, you got to spank them. You know?
Okay, so the only problem with that, and believe me, that's a sentiment that a lot of us have. You know, I live on the river, and so hate to see that. You know, we used to say, when our dog was alive, we'd take her up to a coffee camp, throw the ball in the water, and it's a mess. You know, up there, and you know, you have as you asked a minute ago, who's cleaning up? Well, a lot of volunteer organizations get down there and do it because the people leave their trash behind. They're not taught anymore not to leave their trash behind. So the balance, though, is it's public land, right? It's your land. So if it's closed because of them, it's also closed to you.
It's okay.
And we don't want to close campgrounds. I'm going to get calls from good friends saying, that campground's closed. Why is it closed? I'm going to say they had to close it because people were trashing it. They're not going to accept that answer because it's public land, and I agree with that. You can't just close public land. You can enforce it more. You can get on there and, you know, give lots of tickets, but you really don't, as just an ideological thing, if it's your land, you really don't want the government to just start closing it, because it won't stop with just that land. That's just food for thought. I got a couple over here that I've already promised 1, 2, and 3. So number 1 was you.
Thanks, Dennis. I'm Jim Calvin, president of Kent Nelson Water Company. During the fire, we supplied tremendous amounts of water to Cal Fire, Brian, Southern Cal Edison. Hope you like your drinking water now. It's going to be a long rebuild process for us. We've been spending I don't know how many months talking to FEMA, Cal OES, showing through all the hoops. Typically we have 5 meetings a year. Now we're up to number 42, working with FEMA. Your office was contacted by one of our board members, Dan Pearson, about these stimulus funds that were sent to Tulare County. We're in a total rebuild program. The only thing that survived the fire was our 510,000 gallons of storage. And now we're building from there on up, looking at new treatment plants, chlorinating the water, giving you really good drinking water. We're testing it daily, but this cannot continue unless FEMA jumps through the hoops with us. Our cleanup, we have 3 sites that are waiting for debris removal. So is July 31 our deadline to get that done? Teresa at FEMA is trying to help us out, but do you know her? Okay.
I was going to address real quickly the water, because Dan did call me, email me, send me the letter. I've already passed that on, so it's in review with our CAO's office as well. And it's a little different animal because it's a private water system.
Mutual Water Company.
Yeah, Mutual Water
Not
Company.
public, but Mutual Water Company.
Right, and we happen to have our water specialist here. Let me have Denise address the water, and I'll come back to you, Dina.
So in order to use the stimulus money, the ARPA money, it has to be a project that's eligible under either Clean Water SRF, which is the wastewater side, or the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. So I can work with you. I need some estimates to include in our plan. It'll ultimately go to the Board of Supervisors to be approved, but we're putting those projects together now. I know Ponderosa, I know you had a USDA rural development grant, right, or something like that, that you ran out of money on some pipe replacement. So need the estimate on that as well. That would definitely be eligible. I would need to figure out what it is you're trying to do to determine whether or not it's eligible under the state SRF. Even though it's coming to the county, the Treasury says it has to be eligible under the state SRF, which also means CEQA, but not NEPA, so that's good. But we can probably work through that. And there will be 2 rounds of money. So we got the first round of money that needs to be spent before we get the second round. And so if it doesn't fit in the first, maybe it could go in the second if it's not ready. But we can definitely look at that. I'll give you my card.
One of our biggest problems is we have collection ponds that are fed by Belknap Creek. We have a Forest Service special use permit was enacted in 1936. But for those ponds, down to our treatment plant is 5,940 feet of 4-inch and 2-inch steel lines. How much of that was compromised by caterpillars, bulldozers, fire, trees falling on it? We don't know. So it's a big project, and it's not going to happen overnight. But Kirk is here. Kirk, if you like a drinking water, you better thank Kirk. Don't forget us about it, Dennis. Okay, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay.
I need to get your card.
Yeah. And I don't remember if his letter had estimates in it. Did it have estimates in it?
No.
Okay. I need some of them did, so yeah. Take care of it. And let's see, number 2 is you. Yeah.
Just a recommendation, we're talking about the little littering and evening doing parking. You have those big digital boards that are warning everybody on the trucks. Why don't we change or have one of those all the time in the summertime? It says if you illegally park, you're towed. If you litter, you're ticketed. I mean, it doesn't do much, but at least it warns people. I mean, maybe it'll deter some people.
There was
Maybe
a-
not, but maybe.
That's a good point.
It doesn't possible to do that.
Are you sure you don't want to talk about that, Caltrans representative? I'm just messing with you. An incident occurred recently with somebody that I know where their car was towed on the road. They were parked in one of those places that wasn't maybe clearly marked, but it was towed. And so he started doing research on science, all kinds of things going on. But I did try to start a conversation where we're going to probably try to get CHP, Forest Service, and the county all together, Sheriff's Department, all together on that, to collaborate and see, because you've got a state highway, so you've got Caltrans, and then you've got when you get off the road, you're going down into Forest Service, but you've got county patrolling it, and you get in highway patrol. So anyway, try to get all of them together and see if there's some brainstorming. I mean, to the point over here, people were saying, well, let's just make it locals only can go there, but I don't think that's going to withstand a legal challenge as much as we would like it. Anyway, so a lot of things out there. Caltrans, flashing rented sign, maybe something. There's some official signs that are, no parking for the next couple of miles or things that they might look at. So there is a little conversation just percolating on that right now. Who was number 3? Becky, and back, yeah.
My name is Kelly. My question is directed to you, Teresa, for the Forest Service. My concern is really for back in McIntyre Tract and Belknap. I want to start off with a compliment of 2 years before the fire. Lisa Gemmel took the time of walking lot to lot with each cabin owner and removing hazard trees on the Forest Service dime. That was incredible, especially pre-fire. Edison has been through and moved transformers to poles and taken out huge trees. A couple are still left to be taken out, but I'll talk to them after. My biggest concern is the gate. While that gate did not have a lot of dialogue before it was put in, it was posed to the cabin owners as a winter gate. I almost feel like it's keeping us out. In saying that, I do appreciate the special permits, I just feel as though it's buying the Forest Service extra time. I know that you sent Crew 9 up to clear a lot of campgrounds. However, Belknap is just full of fuel. So I'm wondering what your timeline is for Belknap and what your timeline is for opening that gate.
Okay, I don't have a for sure timeline on the gate, but we do have, and you probably saw it, we did have a geologist and hydrologist go into the area. Have you heard about this already?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll keep it super short, and they assessed the area in terms of what the debris flow potential would be that would put those cabins at risk. And so that is our primary concern, is the safety of the people who would be going into that area. And it still remains, I don't have a green light yet from our geologists and hydrologists telling me that all that danger is past. That being said, we have instilled the permit system for the folks that go in there. I have heard from a lot of the cabin owners in that tract that they are not wanting Belknap Campground to be open. They're very concerned that if we open Belknap Campground, it's going to increase the traffic and the people in that area and potentially increase vandalism on the cabins and things like that. We're not leaving the campground closed just because of that. We're going to keep assessing that road, assessing that gate, but I don't have a time that I can tell you that by this date it's going to be open. I will bring that concern back to Eric LaPrice, the district ranger who works for me, and let him know that you were asking about it. We're going to keep assessing it, but again, it's not a clear area in terms of the debris flows that could occur in there if we get a storm. And we just had, with the storm that came through on Sunday, the first round included rain. I don't know if it hit here, but I was on the Kern Plateau and we got a lot of rain up there. And then the second round of lightning was dry lightning. So we have risk still of rain storms coming through that could potentially still cause some potential for concern in that area. So I'm sorry I don't have a date for you.
So the reasons for that gate were what? To protect cabin owners, or?
So the cabin tract is a part of it, but it's that whole stretch of the road. It's the campground, it's the road, it's the cabin tract, and it's people going into the area of the groves, the Belknap Grove in there, where there's potential with the hillsides being very vulnerable to debris flowing down from those hillsides and causing for there to be a safety issue with anybody that's in that
And
area.
I appreciate that. The gate went in 2 years before the fire. So I guess
Yeah.
I'm really
Okay,
confused. I am
gotcha.
president of the McIntyre tract. I just don't want to speak for everybody because
Okay.
I know there are cabin owners that do like that gate. However, that is the people's land.
I will look at, you know what, I am going to find out about the gate original intent for you.
Okay.
And what's your name again?
Kelly Lamb.
Okay.
Last name.
How do you spell your last name?
L-A-M-B as in boy.
Okay.
First name is difficult. K-E-L-L-E-E.
Okay. Yeah, I'll find out about the original intent of the gate, because I actually didn't realize it had gone in 2 years ago. My first experience with the gate has been post-Castle Fire, so.
It was 2 years, from now.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Okay.
And it's difficult. I'm one of the younger cabin owners, and I have trouble seeing that combination laying upside down looking up. So I just have concern for a lot of people. Most of us are fourth generation people back there, and we lived a long time back there without a gate. And it's frustrating for this community too, that I've been a part of for all that time as well, and I've lived in Nelson proper. If I'm a fisherman, that's a frustrating gate. So I just, TownHall, which I appreciate, I just wanted you to hear all that.
I will find, I usually talk to Pamela.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, who's probably not here, right? So, yeah, I'll find out about it though, because I'm curious now too, I
I
don't
think
know.
as a cabin owner as well, rather than going through one person, especially post-fire, it would be really appreciated if each cabin owner's lease was addressed and that email be blanketed by you, rather than us forwarding on.
So let's talk about future communication with that tract group. I'd love to hear from you how we could do a better job with that, because it sounds like, I mean, we're just bouncing from one person and then they spread it all out. I don't have everybody's email.
Yeah, and I'm okay with forwarding it, but I just think there's got to be a better way.
I know, there does, definitely, yeah. We'll get better at that, so thanks, Kelly.
And thanks again for the special permits, but I think we have.
Yep, okay. Sounds good. We'll work on it.
Okay, hey, I have a question right here, and maybe let's take 2 more after that, because I know you're getting restless. We've been here about a couple hours. It's hot. So if you've got a burning question and you have, that's a bad analogy. If you've got a question you really want to ask, and you haven't heard it asked yet, let's take about 2 more after yours. Go ahead.
Can the stairs be removed?
So I will pass that recommendation on to the district ranger, Eric LeBryce. Honestly, I was curious about the stairs personally. I've gone there a couple times now, so every time I've been there, it is just, there's tons of people down there. They love it down there. And there's a lot of new people. Like the last time I was there, I was coming up, and the people coming down were asking me questions about how much further, and we have this huge cooler that we're dragging down there. And so it's so popular that I think if we closed that area, there would be a huge amount of public outcry. But I do like the idea that the gentleman in the corner there had.
I was going to say really quick, removing the stairs would create another problem. If you go down the 190, you see they're parking further up, and they're eroding the side and ripping up the side.
Okay.
So that's not a solution. It's going to make the situation, they're not going to go away.
But there might be, Dennis is percolating this idea with, we're doing what you talked about on 180, which is a state highway up northern part of the forest. We've got the big signs, the big blinking signs, and Caltrans is working with us on that, and it's great because it gives people the alert, don't trash here. We've put up cameras and things like that for people. So there's things that we can do. We just need the collaboration of all the people involved. So.
What about requiring permits?
Yeah, I mean, that could be another opportunity. Permits are, again, something that it requires quite a bit of work. We do wilderness permits for folks, and it's a lot of work for the staff to keep up on that. They're very valuable for us to do the permits. And people, for example, during the Castle Fire, if it wasn't for the permits that we had, we rescued over a dozen people on the first day of that fire from the wilderness. And it was because we had the permits that we knew who was in there and where they were. So it was really valuable. But it is, and Denise can attest to this because she runs the program, it's a huge amount of work to run a permit system.
But it's a huge amount of work for people that are having the highway patrol and trying to do, maintaining that. And like you said,
Yeah.
parking isn't the only issue. It's people pulling out in front of other people. You're going to have accidents.
Right.
So I agree it is a huge amount of work, but there's other places in the forest where they do that.
Yep.
For that reason, to keep other people safe too.
Yep. So Denise, you can help me relay that to Eric when he gets back from he's at a family reunion right now. And we can maybe explore some different alternatives.
Like the other gentleman said, if there's a permit system in for one location, it just bumps them to another.
Well, you just have to do the stairs and coffee. Like, you determine how many people, and the rest of it is no parking.
Right.
There's no parking. There's parking at coffee camp, and there's parking at the stairs, and there's 20 spots, and that's how many permits you issue.
It's done all over the board, not just, and I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah. Well, all of our campgrounds, for example, are reservations. So.
Okay, we have a question right here.
Yeah, for Scott.
Yes, sir.
These people driving over the line, that's no exaggeration. It's not on the line. We've experienced 2 feet on the line.
We experienced it today coming up.
And we're hugging the inside. I just think I haven't lost a mirror yet.
We were hugging the inside.
Dash cams. I saw, my son was showing me these. I mean, wow. You can see the color of the iris of their eyes. If you have a dash cam on your deal and somebody comes around the road and they're forcing you off the road and you have on a dash cam, is that admissible for you to take action?
Yeah, if you have evidence that you can produce and take it to court, I believe that would be admissible evidence. The issue that comes up, and I'm not wanting to make an excuse, I'm just wanting to be realistic and honest. When we're talking about winding roads, when we have double yellow, solid yellow lines, My officer drives effectively a Ford Expedition. He's gonna need to make about an 8-point turn to find a spot. So he's gonna have to go a half mile down the road, find a place to make a U-turn, come back around. That guy's gonna be 3 to 4 miles. He's gonna have to overtake the individual. He's probably gonna have to cross the line as well. Please don't take that as an excuse. We're not talking a 2-lane undivided roadway on the flat part of the Central Valley where you can see someone coming at you at 70 miles an hour. You don't have any traffic behind them. You can make a U-turn onto the shoulder. You're right behind them. It's very difficult and challenging. The issue becomes where he can do that safely, where he doesn't create a problem, where he becomes a hazard to an individual coming around a corner. Earlier today, you asked a question, and I hope I didn't come back or respond in a way where it was like, I'm not following what your question was. I understand your frustration, okay? Traffic safety is what I've been doing for the last 25 years that I've been with the Highway Patrol. This community is very important to us. You guys all have valid concerns, and I think every law enforcement agency up here, and certainly Supervisor Townsend, has shown the importance that this community has. Whether we're talking fire, tree removal, traffic safety, littering that's unsightly, people coming up that are not from this area. We are committed in a partnership relationship to partner with every agency and every group that's here to provide you the best service that we can. My officer will take every action that he can do in a way that's safe, that he doesn't turn around and jeopardize an innocent person who's coming down the roadway to try to go after that one violation, okay? We are committed. We are shorthanded like every other agency is, but that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that your safety is going to be reduced or the service that we provide to you is compromised, okay? The California Highway Patrol has been around since 1929. We're going to continue to be here. We're going to continue to strive to provide for you the best safety, service, and security. We can't do it alone. We need your help. We can't be all places at all times. But if you contact us, I guarantee you, if you call my office and you give us traffic complaint information and you're willing to provide your address, I will write you a personal letter back to you. If you want to remain anonymous, you won't hear from us again. I have, on average, probably 20 to 30 different traffic complaints that come in a given year, and I'm writing over 80 to 85% provide an address. I type the letter personally myself. I don't give it to my staff. We contact you. If you want to be contacted by Officer Bowers or any other officer that we may have, they'll be at your residence talking to you and telling you what they've done, okay? I appreciate the time today. I think we're wrapping up kind of close, but I felt like I just wanted to get those words out. And at that, I'm just going to get back to you if you have any other questions.
Yeah, we've got one question right here.
My question is about fuel reduction in the winter months with the Cal Fire. I do all the fuel reduction on my own property, and the property line is right over the national forest. That forest is like growing by leaps and bounds, and there's a lot of fuel, and it's like within 30 feet of my house. Is there anything that the Forest Service can do in the fuel reduction season that can assist me in getting that? There's also big piles of debris that's been there since like the 80s that needs to be burned. I don't know if they're wildlife habitat or.
So where do you live?
Pure Point.
Pure Point. So we have our priority project list, and so what I need to be able to get from you is, and actually talk to Ernie Villa, who's the local district fire management officer, is if that area corresponds with anything on our list. One thing you probably noticed is that we were able to finally get the piles burned up around the Ponderosa area this last winter. So it is our priority to remove fuels in any way we can. This last year we had a pretty small window because of the short winter, but we're going to be back up here this winter burning, and so if there's piles that we can burn on the forest, then we need to know where they are. We need to get them on our maps. We need to get them in our burn plans. And you have the option. You can either help me and Denise know before you leave today exactly where it is, or you can go to the district office and get the fire folks there. Ernie Villa and Jeremy Bush would be your best contacts. Just make sure that we've got those piles on our maps. I think we burned over 1,000 piles this last winter. And so we're gonna keep burning this winter coming up. As soon as we get the okay to start burning, we'll be burning all the way to the spring. Yeah, we just gotta know where you're at.
Just don't burn his cabin, it's got really cool.
Yeah, we put good lines around them, and then, yeah, you can definitely get us a map. I mean, that's exactly what we wanna do. Yeah, okay.
All right, did any of the panelists have anything else to say in closing before I wrap this thing up? Did anybody else have anything they wanted to say? Anybody get bored and you just want to say something else? Give me the high sign. You want to? All right.
This is the longest I've been without talking in a public meeting since my beginning in public service, and I know you applaud me for that. One thing I'd like to say is just with everything that goes on, pre-planning before the incident is the most important thing we can do. My guys out there, Brian Duffy and Derek Vanderstoel, give them a great round of applause. They've done so much. But the planning before the emergency, having a relationship with the Sheriff's Department, having a relationship with CAL FIRE and all our allied fire agencies, getting people evacuated, do look at this, and it is. I am empathetic, and it's very tragic, and 232 structures, 175,000 acres, but we had no civilian injuries, we had no civilian casualties. And that's what I love it up here. I love coming up. A little bit hot today, if you guys could do something. But this is a beautiful community, and we want to help you retain that community. So that's all I had. I couldn't go that.
Thank you, Chief. That's good. All right, and thank you all again. We'll be milling around for a little bit, but I really appreciate you coming out, expressing your concerns. It's all on film. I don't think we were able to get out on a Zoom, so a link will be available. Tammy, or how's it going to be, Mike? Who are you pointing at, Mike?
I'm going to get it up on YouTube.
On YouTube? Okay, so if you search the county utility on YouTube, then this will be up if you need to reference it. Thank you so much for coming out. Really appreciate it. Thank you, panelists.